Welcome back to Pivot with Angel, where I help experienced PMs, agile leaders become strategic leaders through systems thinking, executive communication, and disciplined execution. If you've been delivering solid work, keeping projects on track, and doing everything you're supposed to do, but you still feel overlooked for bigger roles, this message is for you. Because the truth is, a lot of strong project managers are not being held back by a lack of effort. They're being held back by the wrong kind of visibility. Most project managers think the path to bigger roles is straightforward: deliver more, work harder, be dependent, keep everything moving. And on the surface, that sounds right. But that mindset is exactly why so many experienced PMs stay stuck at mid level. The problem usually is not execution. In fact, most of the PMs who get overlooked are very good at execution. They hit deadlines, they run effective meetings, they follow up, they track dependencies, they keep teams moving and prevent things from falling apart. That matters. But when senior leadership is deciding who is ready for bigger responsibilities, they are not asking who is the best at tracking tasks. They're asking who can reduce risk, who can align people, who can create confidence at scale, who can think beyond the plan and see the bigger picture, the bigger business impact, right? That is a completely different standard. And if you are still proving yourself only through activity, you may be working hard while signaling the wrong value. There's a certain point in your career, right? Execution stops being the main differentiator, right? Strategic leadership becomes the differentiator. That is the shift. This is where everything's kind of pivots. And that is where a lot of strong PMs miss the mark. They keep proving they can manage the activity, but they do not show that they can shape outcomes. So let me break this down clearly. There are three reasons strong project managers get overlooked for bigger roles. So I'm going to give you those three right now. Reason number one: they report status instead of interpreting risk. A lot of PMs are trained to give updates. Here's what's got done. Here's what's behind. Here what is due next week. That is useful, but it's not at the higher levels. Specifically, it's not strategic enough to actually assess risk and then create the outcome in order to mitigate it, right? So strategic leaders do not just report what is happening. They explain what matters. They interpret where the real risk is. They connect the dots, they identify the decisions need to be made, and they help leadership understand what happens if nothing changes. That is a major difference between a project manager and a strategic leader ready to take the next role. Anybody can read from a status sheet. Not everybody can turn that complexity into decision ready communication. If you want bigger roles, stop sounding like a meeting recap and start sounding like someone leadership can trust under pressure. Reason number two: they manage tasks but not stakeholder alignment. A project can look clean on paper and still be heading straight into trouble. Why? Because projects don't fail from only missing deadlines. They fail from misalignment. One team thinks the priority is speed. Another one thinks priority is compliance. Another one thinks leadership thinks that the issue is execution. The actual issue is conflicting expectations. This is where strong leadership shows up. Strategic PMs do not just manage the plan, they manage the environment around the plan. They surface tension early. They clarify ownership. They address conflicting priorities. They bring the right people into the conversation before a problem turns into a political one. That is leadership. And leadership notices people who can create alignment, especially when the room is messy. Now, reason number three: they stay operational when they need to become strategic. This is probably the biggest one. A lot of experienced PMs stay buried in execution because that is where they feel competent and useful. And to be fair, execution is important, But bigger roles require more than operational control. They require strategic thinking. That means connecting your project to work, to business value. It means understanding how delivery impacts revenue, cost, customer experience, compliance, transformation, goals, and executive confidence. It means asking better questions, not just are we on track, but are we solving the right problems? What risk is growing quietly and out of sight? What decision is overdue? What matters most to leadership right now? How does this work affect the broader system? What is the difference between managing work and leading outcomes? And that is where promotion starts to shift. This is where you become a strategic leader than just the PM. Because bigger roles are not given to the person who is the busiest. They go to the person who can see the broader, who can think a little deeper and reduce uncertainty. Someone that leadership above trust. So, what should you do if this sounds familiar to you? Well, here are three changes you can start making right now. The first change: stop giving update heavy communications and start giving decision ready communications. Don't just tell people what happened, tell them what matters. What are the risks? What decision is needed? And what are the trade offs needed to understand what is the next step in order to complete this? That instantly changes how people see you. Second, pay more attention to alignment and activity. Just because tasks are moving does not necessarily mean the project is healthy. Watch for confusion. Watch for conflicting expectations. Watch for silent disagreements, especially among your team. Alignment problems are leadership problems, and leaders solve those early. Third, tie your work to value, not just completion. Do not make your contributions sound like task execution only. Frame your work in terms of reduced risk, improved clarity, better stakeholder alignment, stronger delivery confidence, and then business impact, which is more important than you would believe. That is how you stop looking like a reliable coordinator and start looking like a strategic leader. And that is the real point. Strong project managers do not get promoted just because they do more. They get promoted when people trust them to think bigger, lead broader, and create stability in complex environments. That is the shift. Now, if you're an experienced PM and you want bigger roles, better influence, strong positioning, stop asking how to do more work. Start asking how to create more strategic value. This is what gets noticed. If that message hit home, this channel is for you. Here on Pivot with Angel, I break down what it really takes for experienced PMs and agile leaders to move from execution into strategic leadership. So if that's where you're headed, subscribe, follow along, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then.